Good afternoon. Welcome to Freedom Deals Live for the 1st of April. I'd love to hear if anyone got stung by any April Fool's jokes yet. It is now 12:01, so unfortunately I don't get to play any pranks, which I have to admit I was contemplating this morning, but being a 12 o'clock session totally undermined me. So for those that this is a new thing for, what do we do at Freedom Deals Live? We pull apart real deals. So these could be deals that I'm currently assessing and considering purchasing. They can be deals that I've decided to buy. They can be deals that I've already decided to pass on. And they can be deals that are previous deals of mine or deals that I'm working on with other people. In that space, so a lot of the sites that we've been doing recently have been 1 to 2, 1 to 3, sort of up to the 1 to 5 space, which is definitely where I encourage you to start. It is a hotly contested section of the market, but the risk of going to larger projects when you first start far outweighs the benefit of trying to stretch yourself in that regard. So definitely staying below 5 lots typically for your first project, unless you are partnering with someone that has the experience in doing those sorts of things. But in that being said, there's a number of deals that I've been working on in the background which are coming to fruition, which I'm hoping I'll be able to share with you in the coming weeks/months. Obviously, as negotiations happen in deals, there is sensitivity to the information. So I've got to be careful in terms of what I share publicly. So not always, but often when there are deals that I move ahead with, I'll only be able to run the sessions on this once I've actually secured the deal and settled the deal, because it's obviously not worth the risk of potentially causing any sort of grief by sharing more information than I need to prior to settlement. Not that it necessarily is appropriate or fair, but some people get very upset when they discover that you're making money from their site, which obviously as developers we need to, but some people do get surprised by that and for some reason don't like it. So yes, there are some exciting things happening in the background, and I look forward to sharing those with you when I can. So first of all, if you've had an April's played on you, please pop in the comments what it is. Love to know. And also usual sound audio check. If you can throw in the comments that you can hear me, that you can see me, that would be much appreciated. I'd hate to talk to myself for the next half hour or so. So the one we're going through today is an off-market deal, which is always a good start. And first of all, I guess put to you, how do you get off-market deals? How would you go about going up and getting off-market deals if you're not already doing that? Maria, hi, good to see you, Maria. And Roland, can see it here. Fantastic. Good start. Okay, so off-market deals. How would you get them? What are the avenues that we go down to get off-market deals? And I'll tell you that there's nothing magical about it. And I'm just thinking of a scenario when I first started. Thanks, John. When I first started out with this, I remember going to a seminar, and one of the key lines in the advertisement for the seminar, which got my attention, was, "We will teach you where to find investors." We will teach you where to find investors. And I got super excited about that. And I probably hadn't ever challenged myself on my thought process at the time. Like I'd either never done a deal at the time or I'd maybe done my first deal. I can't remember. And I got super excited about this prospect of where do you find investors? So I went along with this seminar, and it got to the section where it was about where do we find investors? And I'm thinking, where are these investors hiding? Where's this magical place that investors exist? And then the seminar leader says, "All right, everyone, get out your phone." All right, get out my phone. I'm waiting for it to be told, what number to call or whatever. And they're like, "Righto, look through your contacts. This is where you start finding investors." And my heart just sank because one, it brought up a whole bunch of stuff of unresolved money psychology that I had at the time. But two, that realizing that there is no magic. There is no magic to where you find investors. Investors is you start talking to people. And what are the best people to talk to? People you already know that have a level of comfort with you. So that was a bit of a bubble popped for me. But then on the other hand, great breakthrough because as soon as I realized that, there's nothing standing in between me other than myself in terms of getting investors. So it's exactly what I did. I started making uncomfortable phone calls. They were uncomfortable for me. But as time goes on, they get easier and easier. And especially as you build the track record, it gets a lot easier. But the same is true for off-market deals. how do you get off-market deals? Look, there's no real, myth to it or magical stuff to it. It's okay. How would you go about it? All right, we'll start. Who are the people that are talking to people that are off market? Well, typically before a property goes on market, they're going to talk to agents, aren't they? So having good relationships with agents is really important, because sometimes, where appropriate, they will give you a heads up that one is coming to the market before it hits the market. And they'll also give you a heads up when there are people that approach them saying, look, I want to sell, but I don't want to go to market. I don't want open homes. That is a relatively common thing. Just people that are private, that the idea of having strangers traipse through their house every week is just too much for them. So that's one thing. And then, so agent relationships. The next thing is direct contact. So door knocking, dropping off a note, sending a letter, anything you can do to get in contact with the owners. Going to networking events. Networking events is another interesting one for investors as well as off-market deals, because something I've found over the years at networking events is sometimes the people that will come to those events are people that have a property that is developable. They don't know how to do it themselves, but they're looking for someone to do it with. So they start going to these events to get a bit of general education themselves, but ultimately what they're hoping to do is find someone that is willing to partner with them and to develop their site. So basically, anywhere, anything you can do to get in touch with people that own property is a good place to be. And it's like anything, you've got to sow a lot of seeds before you reap the rewards. So it's all too often people go to something like, oh, I didn't meet anyone. It's like, great, you went to one. Go to one every couple of weeks for the next year. And if you still haven't found anyone, then complain. This does take work. So off-market deal. This one came through an agent call. So this is an agent we have a really good relationship with. We sell a lot of our land through them. And they've given us a call about this one going, hey, look, not sure if it stacks, but these people are looking to sell. And thought I'd bring it to you first and see if you're interested. Now, this is the property we are, where are we? This is the one we're looking at here. Now, for me, there was a problem straight away in that one of my rules is no main roads. Okay, so you can see this is on a main road. For those that aren't familiar with Sandgate Road, it's a very, it's a significant road. All right, so in this particular spot here, you've got 4 lanes across, and at peak time, I'm just trying to zoom out to give a bit of context, Brisbane Entertainment Centre over here. This is the freeway. At peak time, this is a real bugger of a road, but it is definitely a main road. There's no getting around it. So one of my money rules, or one of my deal rules, is apart from some very special circumstances, I won't do deals on main roads. That's just one of my rules. I know people that do, and I know people that have done well. But my reason for not doing deals on main roads is that when a market is flying, all sins are forgiven. When a market is flying and there is limited stock, people overlook things like main road. They look over things like flooding and overland flow. These sorts of things that typically are really unattractive on a property, and they are sometimes expensive to get rid of or deal with or whatever it might be. But when there is FOMO, fear of missing out in the market, a lot of these things get ignored. And main roads is one of those two where people might be like, look, I do not want to live on a main road, but the only land I can find is a main road. So that's what I'll take. But the big asterisk on that is that as soon as the market sneezes or coughs, those B and C grade properties are the first ones to get hit, and get hit hard. So what do I mean by hit? Hit hard means that they all of a sudden stop selling altogether. As in, you just can't move them. You pretty much can't drop the price low enough to have them move. And I'll give you some real examples. So 2022 was when the peak of the market was in that cycle, that shorter cycle. I think from memory up here in Brisbane, it was around April, May, off the top of my head, we had the peak of the market. Now, in that first section of 2022, when the market was hot, especially before Christmas in 2021, blocks that were horrible with overland flow, there was some that I know of that were selling for around 700,000. After the market cooled off, it didn't tank, but after the market cooled off and all of the buyer frenzy disappeared because we had that inflation, we had the interest rate spikes, they couldn't sell them for 550, they couldn't sell them for 500. So you had blocks of land that were selling for 700 and over all of a sudden they couldn't even give them away for $200,000 less. Now, if you bought a 1 into 2, assuming you could sell for 700,000, and then all of a sudden you can't sell for 500,000, that's taken a deal that was profit making into loss making, and then you've also got the holding costs to stick around for longer. So that wasn't the same treatment for properties that were in good locations. That was the worst situations were for those B and C grade properties. So it's really important that when you are looking at your exit strategy, that you're not just thinking about, well, what about how's it going to be in this market? What if the market comes off the boil? What's the strategy then? And this is where we talk about multiple exit strategies. You should never go into a deal with just one exit strategy and assuming that everything is going to remain the same. Okay, so that was the first big red flag for me. But as I said, there are some circumstances where I may do them, but this one did not satisfy that for me. But I'm still looking at it because I'm like, all right, well, I might not be interested, but maybe there's someone I know that might be interested that I could flick this site to. So let's keep looking. All right, main road, negative. Let's have a look at the street view. And remember, guys, I want you to be putting in the comments what you are seeing. For those that have done this before with me, you know where we're headed. So I want you to be looking ahead and seeing what you can see without me prompting you and putting it into the comments. All right, this is where you're going to build that muscle. This is that repetition. Street view. Okay. Whew, a lot of foliage at the front. All right, so this is the subject property here. So it's a low set brick. First thing, brick is more expensive to get rid of than timber. Off the top of my head, I'd guess 35, maybe 40 grand to demolish. Roland, looks like a small block. Yes, it does. Okay, what else do we see here? Well, we already know it's a main road. We've got overhead power on our side of the street. One thing I immediately notice is the block is lower than the street. Okay, so the contours, if we looked at a contour map, would show the block blowing away from the street. Why is that a problem? Legal point of discharge. How is the storm water getting off the property? Okay, so solutions to that could be, okay, there might be a stormwater line at the back of the property that we can drain into. Or there may be a park or public property at the back that we can drain into. Or there might be stormwater infrastructure in the road or in the footpath deep enough that even though our block is lower than the street, that we can tap and drain into that. Otherwise, we need to somehow be able to drain to the curb and channel here, which means we need to be higher over here. Doesn't take a genius to figure out that to lift a block is not cheap. So that's something we'll need to get an answer to. Anything else we notice here? So something I would point out to you here is look how big this footpath is here. Let's have a look over here. So what do you notice? So this boundary here, this is a standard footpath. This one over here is 10 meters. So if we have a look here again, at the footpath allowance, from memory, I think here it'll be about 3 meters. That's annoying. All right, let's say it's there to there. Yeah, I don't think it's 5 meters there. Not sure I'm pinning it in the right spot. But either way, what I'm trying to point out to you is these are things you can look at, just observations, is there is clearly an allowance on this side for future road expansion. Yeah, correct. Yeah, road widening. Thank God it's on the other side of the road. Yeah, well, I mean, thank God that the provision is made, because see, what you'll often get is when there was poor planning done in the past, there's no provision made, but because it's a significant road, they know they're going to have to widen in the future. What will happen when you develop is they either won't allow the development because they know full well they're going to have to resume that property at some point in the future, or they're going to take it from you at the front, and they can. So they might go, look, we're needing an additional 7 meters, so we're going to take 7 meters at the front of your property. Probably not going to develop that property now, are you? So what we can see here is that, but also if we were looking at this as a long-term whole, what we need to know and realize is eventually this road is going to have at least one more lane added, probably two. So that's something to be aware of. All right, Anything else? Just looking at what you guys have popped in there. Small block. Yeah, so the size of the block, I was measuring the wrong property anyway. The size of the property is 607 square meters, and it's got a 15-meter frontage. So under what circumstances can we develop that, given that it is low density residential? And in this particular council, currently, the standard size of block for a low density residential zoning is 400 square meters with a 10-meter frontage. But for those of you that have been watching for a while, you know that there's a loophole. So what's the loophole? Under what circumstances can we develop this 600 square meter block with a 15-meter frontage into two 300 square meter blocks? All right. Now, I'm not going to give you the answer on that one because I expect that some of you will know this. So I'm going to move on and I'm going to wait for some comments, either giving me the answer or, if you're unsure, at least giving it a crack. So just again, the question is, under what circumstances, what loophole, if you will, can we subdivide this property into two 300 square meter blocks instead of the usual minimum 400 square meter blocks? Okay, let's have a look at servicing. Actually, so this is DA approved. John, close to shops, kind of. It's a bit more specific than that, but yes. All right, since John's had a crack. All right, so it's not as simple as just close to shops. It is the zoning of those shops. So they need to be a neighborhood center. So just your local strip of shops may or may not be enough. You need to actually look at the zoning and what the classification of the land is. Roland, I can't remember the name, but it's where properties are close to shops or a special central zoning. Yeah, so neighborhood center is the zoning. So this one is, so this is the neighborhood center here. See NC, neighborhood center. So the rule is that your property's frontage, or any frontage within 200 meters walking distance of a neighborhood center, key points here, 200 meters walking distance of the neighborhood center, can be subdivided as small as 300 square meters and 7.5 meter frontages. Now, there's some nuance to this. I'm just going to expand this. Give me a minute. Okay, so let's have a look at this. All right. Now, notice there that I went to the far edge of our property. I didn't go to how far it is to our property because it's very specific in its wording in that the frontage, the whole frontage, must be within. So, number one, it's 108 square meters. So we are well within 200 meters. Now, key points being here is walking distance. Is it reasonable and safe for a person to walk along this footpath? Yes, it is. Now, just because we can do it here doesn't mean this person can do it on this side of the road, even though they're well and truly within 200 meters of the center, because it's walking distance. So if we were looking at a property over the road, we've then got to look at, okay, how would they safely cross? Is there a crossing here? Now, I actually can't tell from that, but there's no obvious crossing this way. I presume there is, because there is here. But okay, let's use this as a case study in that, let's say, actually, I don't think there actually is a crossing on this side. Let's say it is this way. If you were doing a property on the other side of the street, let's call it this block here, what you would need to do is measure like this. Oh, hang on, I'm going to have to zoom out. Okay, you would need to do this from the boundary to the crossing, over the crossing, to the other side, and then down to here. All right, now, I've got no idea why that didn't just give me a measurement. All right, I'm getting some lagging happening here. But anyway, you get the point in that even though these two are in very similar locations, that is actually how you would have to measure the 200 meters walking distance. The other nuance to this, or the other small thing to be aware of, is that it is the entire frontage. So if you were one of these properties that's further down here, and let's say 200 meters walking distance finished here, then the block on this side would be allowed to be 300 square meters and 7.5 meter frontage. The block on this side would need to be 10 meter frontage and 400. So it's only what you can fit within what is within the frontage that is within the 200 meters walking distance. Okay, so this one is DA approved already. So here we go. This is the DA approved plans. Just having a look here myself for a couple of things. Okay, so we've got Sandgate Road out here. So proposed shared access easement, that's not ideal. Basically what the reason for it is when you've got main roads, they typically do not want additional crossovers, additional driveway entrances onto a main road. So what they're forcing here is a shared easement access to into each property so that there isn't an additional crossover to the property. All right, now there is also some fill required and some retaining required because there is this low point at the front. And note here, walls must be offset, tiered from the property boundary where greater than 1 meter in height in accordance with, okay, so here, for some reason, I can't say off the top of my head why, it'll be because of the 1 meter, so they have to be stepped into the property. I would propose that is due to not wanting to impact the neighbouring property too much. Okay, so you're actually losing some of your land, your usable land at the front here. Technically you own it, but it's not usable. Okay, all right. So DA approved, good. Earthworks, not good. Retaining having to step in off the boundaries, not good. Shared access easement, not good. It's a bit of a dog so far. Now, does that mean you can't make money out of a dog? No, it doesn't. But it's not exactly looking like a superstar right now. If all of this was off a main road, I would be looking at it through a different lens. If it was all off a main road and I had to do all of these things, if the numbers stacked, I'd be okay doing it. But adding that to the fact that it's on a main road is not ideal. Okay, dial before you dig. Let's have a look at services. Here we are. Yep, so NBN, no issues. Yeah, these days anywhere within the city, you don't expect there to be an issue. Optus don't care about. All right, so there is stormwater infrastructure in the road. Now, I mentioned that earlier. Here's a tweak to that though. So yes, in theory, there's stormwater infrastructure in the road, and I would bet that it is deep enough. However, we are talking a main road and we are talking a state-controlled road. To do any work on a main road, not cheap, let alone a state road, you are probably talking months of delays just to even get approval to do it, and it will be horrendously expensive. So basically, that's why in this DA, they will have written off that option and they will have gone for a retaining and filling option. Gas. No natural gas to this property. Water and sewer. Okay, so water we have in the footpath at the front. That's nice. Existing connection over here. Oops, wrong property, I think. That's us here. Yep, so existing here, and the fact that we're this one and not that one actually is a significant difference. Why do you think that is? Why does it matter? Why would our cost of development be different for this property versus this property? Let's see. All right, so we've got access to water, got access to sewer, but there is a distinct difference. And actually, I didn't really pay attention to this property here. What's the... Okay, that's just a large residential one. All right, so I won't wait any longer, but if you're typing, keep typing and send it. All right, the reason there is a distinct difference between this one and this one is because of the sewer. So with the water, we've got no issues. We're just tapping off an existing connection and we're adding it here. No difference. Roland, the sewer connect needs to be extended across the back of the top property, correct? So currently the sewer, it has only a stub here. What needs to happen is the sewer main needs to be extended over into the new block and then a new stub put off. So there is sewer work that is required here, not just adding an additional connection. Now, I don't believe we will need to add a manhole there, but I'm not going to say that with absolute certainty. And Energex, well, we already know that there's power at the front of the power on our side of the street, overhead at the front. Now, us being here, property pole here, currently connection comes through here. Maybe they will allow that existing block to maintain overhead power, but the other one over here, 90% likely they're going to require underground power and then connect in. Okay. John, that would be expensive. The sewer, look, that part in itself, not crazy expensive. At the moment you have to do a manhole, then you can definitely go up a price bracket, especially, and the depth of the sewer makes a massive difference too. At this point, the biggest expense and blowout is that retaining and works at the front. That's definitely the ouch part at this point. Okay, let's have a look. So it is DA approved. All right, so that is one of the things that is great on this deal that does de-risk it, because we know what the outcome with council is. All we have to do now is produce the product and exit. That's it. So timeframes are much less. Now, my acquisitions person here has allowed 12 months. That allowed 2 months for settlement, 3 months until getting on site, and construction of 6 months and 3 months. Now, look, I think it's very generous. But one thing I don't know, which I'd have to go through the conditions to see, is do we require an operational works permit to do the works that they've suggested with the retaining and the earthworks? There's a chance probably that we do, which in that case is not generous. It's probably about right. Also, the fact that if any of this works requires disturbing the main road, which I believe, I can't remember the details of it, but the engineer flagged that there would be some, then that's going to cause delays in time as well. Let's just have a look at that again on the footpath. Why? Because that is something we've been told, is that there is some works to do on the road, but I'm just actually not clear why. Let's go back to the street view. See if there's anything obvious jumping out to me. Look, I don't know, actually. Nothing is jumping out to me as to works that are required on the main road. And it looks like, yeah, water, I'm quite certain, is in that footpath. So look, I actually don't know why they've asked us to make that provision. So basically, if everything else looks good enough, then I'll dig into that. If not, then we wouldn't worry about it. But, okay, so let's have a look. Oops, that's lagging now. I'm just going to refresh that screen because that spreadsheet's lagging. Okay, so we've allowed a 20% buffer, which is 36,000 based on the current estimation for construction cost. You can ignore the purchase price because that's just a number that's been thrown in there for the moment. So sewer, our estimate is 15,000. So that's for extending the sewer and doing the additional stub. Water, we're only allowing 5,000. It's a very simple connection just straight at the front off the existing line. Stormwater. So stormwater is a bit of a combination effort here because stormwater in part is relating to that work at the front, but then we do actually have retaining allowance down here. As soon as you go over a meter, the walls need to be engineered as well. So that adds additional time and cost. And there's obviously the earthworks and fill. So that's a combination of retaining, and then earthworks and fill is what these allocations are for here. This is what I was referring to before. So this was just the engineer basically saying, look, make an allowance of about 30 grand. You're going to need it, basically, because we're dealing with that main road there. Power and telecoms is allowed design and construction, no. Overhead, extra power pole. I don't think he's actually correct in that, and I don't think we'll get away with that. I would expect that we will probably need to do underground power for that other property. Always better to make the provision for it and then fight the battle and maybe get a win and save yourself the cost. But I would suspect that won't work. Erosion sediment control, combined driveway. Got to reinstate the footpath because no doubt it will get damaged from all the work we're doing and machines. Okay, so all in all, civils, 184,000 for a 1 into 2. That's up there. That's just the civils. That's no soft costs. Now we talk soft costs. So we've got our stamp duty, legals on land, council headworks. That's not enough these days. So that's these days in most council. Oops, not that much. It's mostly split across. You might be paying it all to the council, or you might be doing an allocation to council and an allocation to the utility provider that does the water and the sewer. Question, is this a real estate development schedule or what? I don't know what you mean by schedule. Would need a property pole if current Energex pole is on the wrong side of the block. Yes. So if they allow overhead power to that new block, correct. What I'm saying is most of the councils now are objecting to continuing overhead power. Where they can, they force you to go underground. So yes, they may allow a property pole, but they're not a fan of them. So they may force that other block to be underground. So no DA costs are needed because it's already got DA. So these are all our other soft costs for execution. One thing that he may have left out here, but again, not having gone through all the DA conditions yet, if there is operational works approval needed, there is going to be engineering costs for that and submission costs, and then also management of that during the construction, getting it certified. So that potentially is another cost that needs to be added here. Okay, so the finance model we've worked with here, 6.5% for the interest rate. I'm just going to say I've got the cash, or I'm doing a JV, and I'm doing that because based on what I've seen already, I think it's going to need all the help I can get. 80% lend on the purchase, and our agent has advised that we could sell each block for about 750,000 each, believe it or not, even on the main road. Crazy market, but this is where anyone from this local area go, whoa, that's a big price for that land on that main road. But again, if the market was to cough or sneeze, straight away that price changes drastically for this kind of block. Okay, so where are we sitting ROI wise? Okay, so we are at 26% if we can buy it at 760,000. Now, the sad news is that is not what the sellers are wanting for it. I think it's just over $1 million that they are wanting for it. Boom, crunch. So with this one here, what I think is the hard pill for them to swallow is that they probably, one of two things. They probably either don't have an awareness of what the actual cost to develop this block is going to be. The other possibility is they're fully aware of it, and what they're hoping is for a builder to come along that is so desperate for land because they can't access land anywhere else because the land market is so tight, that they are willing to go through the subdivision process to basically create their own land at very little profit on the land. And look, in this market, they may actually get it. It's possible that it'll happen. It doesn't make any sense to land developers, but in this sort of a market where builders, if you put yourself in the position of a builder, you need to build houses to make profit. People are coming to you going, hey, we love your product. We'd love to build a house with you. And you say to them, great, where's your block of land? And they go, oh, we don't have one. Can you help us find one? Well, in a market where there is such a short supply of land, that is a legitimate issue for the builders in staying afloat is actually finding enough land for them to be able to build on. So in this market, they may very well get it from a builder that is just desperately looking for land to build on to keep their business moving. But in terms of a land development deal or for anything else, it's not worth it. You know, there's 50 grand disappears like that at a 3% ROI. And the thing is, you need the margin there for safety, but also even if you were to build 2 houses on this, the margin is so fine that the profit in that could disappear overnight very quickly. So basically at that price point, it is a big hard no. But they may just get what they're after in this market if there's a builder desperate enough. You just don't know. Okay, any questions? And so just going back on that, so is this a real estate development schedule? If you're meaning a feasibility, yes, what we're looking at is a feasibility for a real estate development. And yes, we are going through development sites and doing feasibilities and doing due diligence on them, correct, if that's what you mean. Otherwise, I'm not sure what you mean by schedule. All right. That's all from me today, guys. There will not be Freedom Deals Live next week. It is Easter holidays and I will be at the beach. I hope you're all doing something nice for the Easter holidays as well. So have a great Easter break and I will see you the following week. No, I was going to say, I might be able to share some of those other deals with you by then, but it may still be too early. Anyway, keep pushing on, and not a feasible site at the price the owner wants. Correct. And look, one of the reasons I show you this, and for those that have been looking at this for a while, you'll see there's a lot of sites that we say no to, and that's probably the side that people need to see more of, because I find so many people starting out get so disheartened after they look at a bunch of sites and they don't work. The experts are looking at it, way more sites that don't work. So I hope you find some encouragement in the fact that seeing me go through so many sites that I put a big red cross through and move on from, hopefully that encourages you rather than the opposite, because everyone's going to do it. If you want to find the gold, you've got to be willing to sift through the rubbish. And it's worth it. It's worth doing. You've just got to have the persistence and the patience. All right. Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'll try not to go too hard on the chocolate. But yes, have a great Easter yourselves, great holiday, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks. Bye.